Hey there, fellow wargamers, it's your man, it's a Sentinel from across the tabletop. And just a quick heads up, this is going to be a quick review of the new layout of the land with the new terrain pack that GW has released, the new rule set, the FAQs, the changes in points. Just wanted to give a quick one on that. So let's get into it. So GW have released their 10th edition compendium, which is the tournament company, is it Leviathan Tournament Companion, and it introduces you in how to play the Leviathan 10th edition sort of rule set that they've got going for themselves at the moment, as a competitive scene. So we've got the mission sequence and the steps, the card updates, because they've changed 3 of the cards, only by wording adding or taken away. There's some terrain layouts and the pairings and rankings advised to the tournament scene. The biggest change they did with the Leviathan tournament pack essentially is you can now stand on the center of the objective, the 40mm base of the objective. Previously you couldn't. It was you were allowed to go through it, but you weren't allowed to land a model on it in the center of the 40mm base, should we say, for the objective. Now you can here. You can now stand on top of it, which is massive. It means you just stop the interaction where you can move block someone making a charge, for instance. Creating a battlefield hasn't changed. There you go. Those are the 3 cards. So deploy skull, deploy servo skulls, deploy teleport homer, and behind enemy lines. Again, look, center of battlefield for 3. Behind enemy lines. This now gives you, at the end of your turn, if 2 or more units from your army, excluding from the objectives, it's achieved. This action is achieved, you score 5 using the tactical instead of 4, which is, the tactical just means the ones you're generating and not fixed. If at the end of your turn you only, so yeah, it's a little bit more, you get more points essentially now. So we're going to the terrain layouts now. So this is the way you draw the cards. So I've got some of the cards here, and this will be the deployment zones. So this is like your, let's just switch the screen out so you got my ugly face and you can see what I'm actually talking about. So here's the actual terrain layout. So all of these here are the deployments, which are these. So they suggest using these deployments with the mission rules on the right here. Okay, on your right here. Then we've got, those are the gambits. What are those? They're the attackers. Yeah. So you got the purge. And mission rules, primary mission and mission rules. Those are the cards that you have, and what you would normally do is you choose one, you randomly select a primary mission, and then you randomly select a mission rule, add an extra objective, 2 CP for, say, Overwatch, or reroll hidden supplies, things like that, gain an extra CP on certain objectives, remove one. So this is GW's way of saying this is what we recommend from a player standpoint for a tournament, of how you marry up the mission cards and the rules to make the best tournament playing. But again, the whole point is so it can be randomized, but the idea is that at least the tournament organizers can see their sort of logic in what they recommend. Okay, then they go on to table layouts and they describe their terrain. So the next part of it is their terrain. They're talking about using PVC plastic. So this is the PVC plastic of the old terrain set, which was 12 inches by 12 inches. Now they've gone with a, is it half that now? 12 by 4, does it say there? For models mobility, it's 4 inches, so that's the height of the actual objectives themselves. They don't talk about the area terrain on here of what size it is, but if you look on the map here, you'll see that the terrains are not as big as these big square ones. So I can imagine they're now just half of it, which is about 12 by 6 now, which makes sense because you can see you got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 now, and you used to have 4 with some of the pieces now being a little bit smaller. So it's almost like they realized their big 4 pieces and their 6 small ones wasn't quite working, so now they've cut them in half, put more of them on the table, and then they've created sort of like a terrain layout that they recommend for particular games, which is awesome. I mean, GW is actually interacting with us, creating little scenarios for us to use, so amazing. I don't see it functionally working with the towering keyword. Yes, it increased the points, but we've all seen the issue that towering is given at the moment, the fact that you can't see them and they can see you. So there's going to be some issues there. They can shoot at pretty much everything with the way that our terrain is created for 9th. So we need to think outside the box and create new terrain for 10th. And GW have some great terrain, but it doesn't quite function the way the tournaments would like to see it as fair as possible. So yeah, it's just going back to the creating the terrain that benefits the tournament scene. And then right at the bottom is some notes on how to rank in win paths and things like that. We have a slight debate at the moment how to do that, but we'll get there as the community sort of evolves. Okay, then I just wanted to cover here. So that's the GW one. Coming from that, with the fact that like we said, with in the UK, the UKTC, which is Zach over at the UK tournaments terrain, UK tournaments organizer, the big one in the UK anyway. Using the super majors and the majors that he's putting on all over the UK. His terrain pack has now identified that all the ground floor windows are going to be on the ground floor. There are no apertures, and line of sight or line of sight is naturally blocked. Basically, ground floor blocks line of sight. His terrain set's pretty much already guaranteed that with the big L's. So the big L's didn't give you any line of sight. Okay, this is rudimentary, but yeah, this is what basically the big L did. So there's no line of sight on the ground floor there. Slide across, grab that one. These are my L's. So these are these ones here. So I don't know if you can see my mouse moving over it. So those are the big L's there that I created. Now his has got smaller apertures. I just like mine big so you can visually see it. Now on his ruling, all this ground floor now is line of sight blocking. So I'll look at probably adapting, maybe magnetizing some on, or creating some windows to be blocked, or just go and create new terrain. You know, all the nice things about it. So that ground floor now is blocked. The smaller L's essentially were line of sight blockers anyway. So again, rudimentary, but the line of sight blockers for the small L's were already out line of sight blocked anyway. So that's the way the land at the moment. That's the terrain set that's been put out from Zach for the ITC in the UK. And I'm looking forward to actually playing on seeing some of them, seeing the interactions between the towering and all that sort of good stuff. Well, thanks very much, and I'll catch you in another one.